Welcome to Cat Has Questions, curiosity, stories, and the strange corners of everyday life. Hello. I am your host, Kat. So I had a comment from a listener, hey girl, about potentially making my episodes longer, and I am so happy to oblige. I can keep yapping all day, so I will dive in a little deeper for today's story. And guys, I am so excited for today's story. We are talking about a murder solved by a ghost. Yes, a literal ghost. A woman whose spirit allegedly came back, not to haunt, but to testify. In a case so bizarre, so unsettling, and so impossible to fully explain, a ghost story became part of legal record. This is the tale of a young bride, a violent husband, a suspicious death, and a mother who refused to be silenced. In a haunting so precise, investigators changed the cause of death. So settle in, because today we are going to unravel one of the strangest cases in American history, the Greenbrier Ghost. Before we rewind to the beginning, let me tell you the part that still makes my stomach drop. During the autopsy, doctors found that Zona Shue's neck wasn't just injured, it was broken between the first and second vertebrae. That exact detail her ghost allegedly told her mother days earlier. Now let's go back, because none of this makes sense without the full story. It's January 23rd, 1897, in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. A delivery boy was sent to the Shue home to check on a young bride named Zona Heaster Shue, who hadn't been feeling well. He pushed the door open and froze. Zona was laying at the bottom of the staircase, one arm stretched out, her head positioned strangely, her feet straight like she had been placed there, not like she fell. He bolted out of the house screaming, just like anybody would. What always gets me about this moment is imagining that poor delivery boy. He's maybe 11 or 12, expected to drop off a message, and suddenly he's the first witness to a scene he will probably never forget. And in small towns, moments like this ripple. Everyone hears about it, everyone starts talking, and everyone has an opinion before the doctor even arrives. That kind of whisper network sets the stage for everything that follows. News traveled fast. Faster than the doctor, faster than the sheriff, but not faster than Zona's husband. Edward Shue, Trout was his nickname, who rushed home and immediately inserted himself between everyone and Zona's body. Can we just pause for a second too? What a nickname, Trout? Was he a fisherman? What is that? So the way Trout behaved, red flags everywhere. Not grief, not shock, not even panic. Control. Complete frantic control. He cradled her head in his lap. He sobbed loudly when anyone stepped close. He physically blocked the doctor from examining her neck. When the doctor finally arrived, Trout would not let him fully inspect her body. He hovered, shaking, crying, insisting that she just wasn't feeling well and had fallen. But here's the part that still infuriates people. Trout told the doctor she had been, quote, sick with woman troubles, unquote. And the doctor felt uncomfortable and intimidated and simply backed off. He listed the cause of death as childbirth. Here's the catch though. Zona was not pregnant. Make it make sense. And look, I get people grieve in all different kinds of ways, but Trout was not grieving. He was controlling. That's the difference. There's a frantic energy to someone who's terrified of what you might find if you're looking too closely. And the doctor, he basically shrugged and said, women's troubles, which in the late 1800s was code for I'm uncomfortable and don't want to challenge the husband. It's wild to think how much this case hinged on a man's discomfort and a woman being dismissed. To understand why this didn't sit right with everyone, especially Zona's mother, we need to rewind a few months. Zona was young, warm, soft-spoken, and stubborn in the most charming way. She fell for Trout quickly. Too quickly, according to her mother, Mary Jane Heaster, who never fully trusted him. From the first handshake, Mary Jane felt something was wrong. The kind of wrong your body knows before your brain does. She later said, he was hiding something. I felt it from the very start. Trout had a history he didn't talk about, a dark one. So he had been married twice previously. One ended of divorce. The wife accused him of abuse. And then the other one ended in death. His wife mysteriously passed away. Pretty sketchy to have two of your wives mysteriously pass away. But Zona didn't know these details when she met him. Trout was charming, handsome, and new in town. He made promises and he made her feel seen. So they got married. And 3 months later, Zona was dead. And honestly, this is one of the relationships where if you zoom out, the pattern is so obvious. Fast romance, isolating charm, a partner who seems to pick someone gentle and eager to love. It's the kind of dynamic where the people around her can see the red flags waving, but the person inside the relationship sees hope. Zona didn't know his past because Trout was intentionally building a new version of himself in a new town. That's the kind of predator Trout was, the kind who reinvents himself every time. So he probably, I don't know if he murdered his last wife, but she's dead. So it's possible that that could be part of it. So funerals in the late 1800s were community events, and people noticed everything. This is when suspicion kind of starts to build. They noticed everything about Trout. He never left Zona's side. He kept fidgeting with her high neck dress, which is also like kind of interesting to be fidgeting with her clothes at her funeral. He placed a scarf tightly around her throat, saying that it was, quote, her favorite. He propped her head up on a pillow, and he wedged a rolled cloth beside her cheek. It looked very strategic, like he was physically stabilizing her neck. People were whispering. The thing about funerals in that era is that they were intimate. Bodies were prepared at home, not at the funeral homes, so everyone saw everything. Women in the community handled the washing and the dressing. These weren't strangers. These were people who knew Zona's face, her posture, her mannerisms. So when they saw Trout hovering and fidgeting and tucking a cloth around her neck, they noticed. These weren't people easily fooled by theatrics, and the fact that they whispered says a lot. The women preparing the body whispered louder. Something was wrong, and Mary Jane knew it. Greenbrier County was small, and Trout was not helping himself. He started bragging that no one could prove he had done anything, which is like also weird. He made jokes. He talked too much about the body. He refused to let anyone near the coffin once it was set. And Mary Jane watched him like a hawk. She later said, "I felt the life go out of me when she died, but I felt the truth rush in." She couldn't explain it, but she knew Trout had killed her daughter, and she was about to do something no one in town expected. One thing I think about a lot is how isolated Mary Jane must have felt. She knew something was wrong, but no one in authority was taking her seriously. That kind of emotional pressure can make you desperate for answers, whether supernatural or not. And when people are pushed that far, their mind starts trying to fill in the gaps. Some people believe that's how hauntings happen, are from unresolved trauma looking for form. Others believe that the dead really do reach out, especially when justice hasn't been served. Either way, Mary Jane was reaching a breaking point. Mary Jane prayed every night, begging for clarity, begging for any sign, and begging to understand what happened. And according to her, a sign did come. For 4 nights, Mary Jane said that Zona appeared at the foot of her bed. Not in a dream, not like a shadow, not like a drifting mist, ghostly figure. A clear, full-bodied apparition of her daughter in the dress that she died in, calm, sorrowful, and determined. Each night, Zona, or Zona's ghost, told the same story. Trout had become violent. He attacked her during an argument. He squeezed her neck in rage. And then Zona said the line that shook Mary Jane to her core. "He broke my neck between the first and second vertebrae." And also let me clarify too, since Trout would not let the doctor near her when he was examining her body, all they said was that she died from childbirth. There was no other signs of anything else that they looked into as far as her dying. So the fact that Zona's ghost told Mary Jane that her neck was broken between the first and second vertebrae, obviously that wouldn't make sense with dying of supposed childbirth. Mary Jane said on the final night that Zona's ghost came and visited her, Zona's ghost turned her head completely around to show the break. And listen, whether you believe in ghosts or you think grief creates visions, the detail about the vertebrae is what makes my skin crawl. because there is no way Mary Jane could have known the anatomy or specifics on her own. No one had examined the neck. No one had mentioned an injury. Trout prevented every medical check. Yet Mary Jane woke up every morning, shaking, sweating, with the exact same message. So she marched straight to the sheriff's office and demanded they exhume the body. The consistency of the haunting is what stands out to me. People dream odd things all the time. But repeating the same message, the same images, and the same specific details 4 nights in a row, that's not how normal dreams behave. Even skeptics at the time said, why vertebrae? Why something so anatomical? It's almost like Zona knew the only way the truth would break through was if she gave her mother something undeniable, something that could be verified. At first, the sheriff did not take her seriously. Doctors rolled their eyes, locals whispered that she was losing her mind, but Mary Jane did not stop. This did not deter her. Eventually, whether out of respect or irritation, they agreed. Zona's body was exhumed. Doctors performed a full autopsy, this time with Trout barred from the room so he couldn't stop anybody from checking her body. And what they found, exactly what the ghost allegedly said. Her windpipe was crushed, the ligaments were torn, and her neck was broken between the first and second vertebrae. It was not an accident. It was not childbirth, and it was not a fall. It was homicide, and Trout Shue was arrested. And honestly, the fact that they even agreed to exhume her is kind of shocking at the time. Think about it. A woman's claim of a ghost appearance was compelling enough to push the sheriff, the doctor, and the community into reopening a case that they had already closed. That tells me 2 things. The town didn't fully trust Trout, which for good reason, and Mary Jane was relentless. She was the exact kind of mother who would knock on every door in the county until someone finally took her seriously. In the trial for Trout, prosecutors tried to avoid the ghost entirely. They had science, they had a broken neck, they had Trout's suspicious behavior. Obviously, this was the 1800s, so there wasn't like DNA testing then. But the defense made a huge mistake. They called Mary Jane to the stand. Their goal was to make her sound unstable. So the defense thought, if we get her on the stand, then it will make her, seem less credible. They asked, did your daughter appear to you as a spirit? What did she tell you? And do you expect us to believe this? And Mary Jane, calm as still water, repeated everything. Word for word, vertebrae and all. The courtroom was silent. Instead of looking unhinged, she looked unshakable. One juror later said it wasn't the ghost story itself that convinced him. It was Mary Jane's absolute certainty. The jury deliberated for just over an hour, and Trout Shue was found guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison. He never admitted anything. What always fascinates me about this trial is that the prosecution avoided the ghost entirely. They wanted a clean case based on physical evidence. It was the defense who stepped in it. They brought up the ghost, trying to make Mary Jane look ridiculous. But instead of cracking, she doubled down with this almost eerie calm. And when someone is so certain that it becomes contagious? That was Mary Jane on the stand, and the jury felt it. And here's the part I keep coming back to. Some stories just don't behave like normal true crime cases. They linger. They feel bigger than the facts on paper. There's something emotionally sticky about this one, like whether or not you believe in ghosts, you believe Mary Jane believed, and sometimes that's enough to change everything. It makes you wonder how many other cases might have been solved if someone had just trusted their instincts the way she did. So what happened to Trout after the trial? Because this man, who walked into town trying to reinvent himself, didn't get the ending he thought he would. After his conviction, Trout was sent to the West Virginia State Penitentiary in Moundsville. And let me tell you, this was not a gentle place. Think dark stone walls, overcrowded cells, barely any heat, and a reputation for being one of the most violent prisons in the country at the time. And Trout, he did not handle prison well. According to other inmates, he bragged constantly about being too clever to be caught and insisted he'd be released eventually. That smug attitude did not make him popular. In fact, other prisoners apparently despised him, not just because he was a convicted wife killer, but because he carried himself like he was somehow above everybody else. And there's this detail I find so eerie. Multiple guards said Trout still kept insisting that Zona, quote, died of natural causes, even when no one was asking. It was like he needed to rewrite the story for himself over and over again, even in prison. Almost like he was afraid the truth would follow him forever. Trout survived only 3 years behind bars. And in 1900, he died from an epidemic outbreak inside the prison. Some sources say measles, others say pneumonia. Whatever it was, it swept through rapidly, and Trout was one of his casualties. His body was buried in an unmarked grave in the prison cemetery, far from Greenbrier County, far from Zona, and far from the life he tried to run from. No headstone, no marker, no family coming to claim him. And in this strange, poetic way, Trout tried to erase the truth, but in the end, he is the one erased. Zona's story is preserved. Her mother's story is preserved, and so is the ghost story. But Trout, he disappears quietly into a patch of ground with no name on it, which might be the closest thing to justice this story could have. So what happened with Trout's second wife? Here's the detail that gets glossed over a lot, but it makes the whole story even darker. Trout had already lost a wife before Zona. His second wife, a woman named Lucy Tritt, died under what the town politely called mysterious circumstances. The official story at the time was that she fell and hit her head, but people close to the family said the relationship had been violent long before that. There were reports that Trout had a temper, that he controlled her every move, and the neighbors would say that they heard shouting. But this was the late 1800s. Domestic violence wasn't something that the law took seriously. And when Lucy died, Trout basically packed up, left town, and reinvented himself somewhere else. No one investigated. No one performed a full autopsy. Classic. Her death was ruled an accident, and that was that. Here's the chilling part. When Trout was arrested for Zona's murder, Lucy's family immediately came forward and said, "We knew something was off." They had always believed Trout killed her, but had no proof, no support from law enforcement, and no way to challenge the narrative he had created. And I think that's why Zona's case hits so hard. It wasn't just one tragedy, it was a pattern. A pattern that the courts missed, a pattern that the community missed, a pattern women around him tried to warn each other about, but no one listened. Zona wasn't his first victim, but thanks to her mother, and maybe thanks to Zona herself, she became the one whose story finally exposed him. Okay, so let's ask some questions, because this one has layers. Why did Trout dress the body himself? Something men never did back then. So like the fact that he was trying to cover up her neck, clearly. And why did he wrap a scarf tightly around her neck? Probably because he knew there would be bruising and that her neck was broken, so needed to cover that up. And clearly he propped her head up with pillows in a rolled cloth so that it would be stabilized. Why block every attempt at the examination? If the ghost wasn't real, how did Mary Jane know the exact vertebrae that was broken? Like, not even just like, oh, her neck's broken, but being able to say it's between the first and second vertebrae. That's kind of crazy. How did she know any injury existed at all, considering an autopsy couldn't be done at the initial, when they all came to the house because no one would let the doctor near her? Well, I guess Trout wouldn't. So was this a supernatural visitation? Or a mother's intuition so powerful it broke through denial and forced everyone to act? Is this a ghost story? Or a true crime case with perfect instinct? Could it be a haunting born from grief that just happened to reveal the truth? I don't know. But I do know this. Something happened in Greenbrier County in 1897 that left an imprint on a family, on a town, on the law, and on anyone who hears this story. And maybe a woman really did solve her own murder from the other side. Thanks for listening today. New episodes drop every Wednesday. And seriously, I love that I get to bring you stories like this. The weird ones, the unsolved ones, the why does this exist ones. If you ever wanted a topic covered, send it to me. I want this show to feel like we're all sitting around a table going, wait, hold on, what? Because those are my favorite stories. Sources are in the show notes if you want to explore more. Until next time, maybe listen to your mother's intuition and don't date that boy that she tells you not to. Thanks for listening to Cat Has Questions. If you liked this episode, follow the show and share it with someone who loves a good spiral. See you next week.